Good evening, everybody. It's Friday night, my friends, and I'm back. And let's see, we're gonna be doing some coding, hopefully. I'm just kind of gonna be trying to sort of work my way out of the hole that I find myself in right now. As it goes with how this is going on now. It's, you know, it's not loud for you guys, but it's loud for me. I'm gonna turn the music down a little bit more there. I realize that you guys can probably barely hear it, but it's extremely loud for me. I gotta figure out a way to, maybe I can sort of route it differently or something. The problem is I want to be able to hear the music myself. And right now it's like super loud in my ears. We'll see. I mean, there's another way to go about it. In fact, you know what? I can turn the volume down on here, and turn it up there a little bit. It's a little less difficult to hear. All right, that's a little bit better. Anyway, my friends, welcome on in. Hope everyone is doing well. Hope everyone's had a good week. Hope you got everything accomplished you needed to do and are gearing up for a relaxing, recharging weekend, hopefully. So yeah, I wanted to take some time off camera to kind of look at this a little bit, and I just have not done so. I have not done so. We're still where we were at the end of the last stream, and I don't know. It's hard not to be it's hard not to be just completely frustrated by this. Is where I'm kind of landing up here. So it's, I don't know. I part of me has thought like, well, maybe I should go back to chapter 5 in this book, since that's where things have diverged from when I was first doing it. You know, throw away all this stuff and then just go back to that and rework it for this part. Or I mean, at the very least, I could probably, I mean, I have all the code. So I could go through the GitHub, I could go through Git history and just roll back to that particular thing, or even I could even branch off of there and start back from there, make the necessary changes I need to make to come back into line with the chapter 5 as they have it, but then I'd have to go forward again with chapter 6 and chapter 7 and then all of chapter 8 pretty much, which is a lot of stuff. I mean, there's a whole lot of things there that we've accomplished. There's stuff that I fixed to get things working, you know, so it's, the frustration level is high. let's just put it that way. And honestly, I feel like what I have here is not far off of where I need to be. It's just there's a lot of rework, and under normal circumstances, I wouldn't necessarily be against rework of stuff. What gives me pause here is that I still don't understand most of what I'm looking at. And so the rework runs the risk of me being even more confused as we're going. But something has to give here, because I have to get back into line with how the book is doing things, or else I'm definitely going to be completely boggled as more stuff goes on. And I don't think, I mean, start looking over some of the stuff, and I don't know that I'm that far off. It's just that there's a lot of fundamental things that they change in addition to what was there, and that's what's kind of throwing me a bit for a loop here. Like, they don't have a forward render anymore, they just have a scene render, which by my recollection is kind of the same thing here. I mean, I've got a lot of the same stuff that their scene render has, but I have more than their scene render has too. You know, Like they've got all the shaders and stuff here and whatnot, but then I don't know, maybe it is very, very similar. Maybe their forward render is basically scene render here. I mean, more or less. So I don't know, because they've got. It does not help that they do this shit, which drives me up a wall. It's like, all right, I get it. If you're making code if you're writing code for yourself or for your project, you know, knock yourself out with this stuff. But specifically, they're trying to make an example for other people to follow, and you're using acronyms that don't make sense to anyone who is not in the know, right? Like, I can gather that this is material, but then PRJ? Don't know. Projection? Who knows? Right? It's like they just, it's stuff like that makes this whole thing much more difficult, because you're trying to also unbullshitify the example code, and that's it's proven to be annoying in every respect of the term. So what do they have here? So I said create descriptor set layouts and pass the pipeline. Create. Descriptor set layouts. So where is this at? This is in the constructor. Okay. So we've got texture sampler. Do I do that? I don't think so. What is texture sampler? Texture sampler. I don't know. What does it say here? So I have the diff between chapter 5 and chapter 8 here. Texture sampler. Texture sampler info. So that's something new, it looks like. It looks like it. Texture sampler. Alright, and then what else do we need there? So we need the descriptor set layout first. I don't know what FRG storage The hell is FRG storage? What does that even mean? Like this is what pisses me off. Wait 1 second here. I still have this. Still have this open. Let me close that. Yeah, this is the part that really ticks me off because I don't let's see what it says here. Chapter 8 texture sampler. Filters, MIP levels, repetition patterns, called texture sampler. Okay, so they have a section here. So did I may not have done the texture sampler? Question mark? I don't know. Oh no, no wait, no, it's not mine. I do have it. Okay. Texture sampler info. Okay, so do a new texture sampler info. A new texture sampler. Alright, so what I'll do is say texture sampler create. So what do we need here? Unless I already have a create texture sampler, do I? No. Alright, so do this first. I know I gotta still do this, but texture sampler info. What is that? VK sampler address mode repeat. Watercolor, int opaque, black. One and true. Okay. And then we just return a new texture sampler with what we need. So with logical device. Go. Create texture sampler. So then they want me to set that up in here. Okay. So before that, though, well, I guess it doesn't actually matter, right? Because this is just texture sampler. I don't pass that into anything, right? So, alright, so it doesn't matter that's there. I'm just going to do it slightly out of order. Descriptor set layouts. Okay, so now what I want to find out. We have... Descriptor set layout. Where's that at? Clean the changes. Update the shaders. We'll get to that. Texture sampler info. Modify a push constant size for create host visible buffer. Create host visible buffer. Where's that? Create host visible buffer. Where's that at? Oh, up here. Okay. Create host visible buffer, descriptor set, and link them together. So that's something new as well. I don't know if I did that yet or not. Descriptor layout. VTX uniform. So we're creating a couple descriptor set layouts now. Push constants buffer. Okay. What is that used? I'll have to look and see. Create the descriptor set layout for the storage buffer. That we'll use in the fragment shader. Texture sampler that we're using says it. Okay. So the storage is for the. Okay. Descriptor layout fragment storage. For God's sakes, please, if you're gonna write something that is supposed to be you're gonna write something that is supposed to be read by other people, for God's sakes, type out your damn variable names. I don't care how much extra space it takes up. Like, just, goddamn, like, this could have been anything. Frog storage? Bridge storage? Like, for God's sakes. Like, goddamn, just type out the frickin' words. You know, I mean, it's like, oh man, it just drives me up a friggin' wall, man. Because it's just like, it's such a simple thing to do. Like, it's like, I realize that the people probably writing this, are not using an IDE. Because I think it's pretty clear that they weren't using an IDE. Just because of all the shortcuts they took. And I'm sorry, but most people would prefer to use an IDE. It's only the weirdos who think that they should do everything in Vi or Vim. Like, that's just the case. Like, if you do everything without, like, it's like saying there are people who want to doing stuff in Vi and Vin. The problem with it is you're building a house without using all the tools that are at your disposal. And yeah, sure, you can dump all kinds of plugins on top of it and try to do this, that, and the other thing. But at the end of the day, someone else is going to be better than you with the code, is going to write better code than you because they don't have to be lazy about it. Right? Like, when you're typing everything out by hand, you're encouraged to be lazy with your variable naming and all that stuff. Right? When you have an IDE that can command complete everything for you, well, now you have no excuse to be lazy. Or in fact, honestly, you're even more lazy because it just does it for you. You know? You know, it's just like, because you just hit Control Space and boom, there's the variable name for you. Yeah. I mean, I guess they do have stuff like that in Vim too, but it's just like, it drives me up a wall that someone went through a lot of trouble to write this book to help others and never bothered to, and just, I don't know, they took all these shortcuts along the way, and, you know, I don't know. I don't know if they realized, I don't know if they understood their audience. It's what it comes down to. It feels like the audience for this is not the audience that should have been for, I guess. I don't know. Most of the time, better code doesn't even matter. Better code is better, like writing a guard pattern instead of a million if else, but like code that runs an O to the end when it's just like an inventory sort of game isn't so hot. Well, it's not. How can I put this? The way I've always looked at it is, I should not expect my colleagues to have PhDs in order to read my code. Right? So if it takes me 20 minutes longer to type out a descriptive variable and a descriptive method name, if I have to get up and walk around a little bit, go to the water cooler and come back because I'm trying to think of a good name for a method, to me that's time well spent. Right? Because you just don't know. Right? You don't know. You want someone who has no freaking idea what this method does to be able to come in and hit the ground running, right? I know that it's a myth that you'll ever write self-documenting code. That's always been a myth. And I'm not suggesting that you try to do self-documenting code. But like, I'm suggesting that every little bit of laziness that happens along the way does add up in the end. Because you really don't know what level of experience someone is when they come in to look at the code, right? Now, I'm a experienced coder, but I've never done anything with Vulkan before. I've never done gaming before, a game engine before. So even though I'm a veteran coder, I am a complete noob when it comes to this stuff. And so I'm coming in here hoping that by reading the code and copying the code and, you know, making my own changes along the way, that I can gain some understanding of what's happening. And in reality, I'm hitting these constant walls where I'm like, what the hell does this mean? What the hell does that mean? And so on and so forth. And it's just making life miserable. You know? And it doesn't have to be, right? Like, the person that wrote this book, they could have taken that extra 10 minutes, that extra 15 minutes, and actually wrote out the full variable name, you know, and wrote better method names. Hell, I wouldn't even mind it if they'd put a couple comments in here that actually made some kind of sense. But they did none of that. And so it's, again, it comes down to, it feels like they're expecting their audience to already know how to do Vulkan stuff and not be, you know, and just, or they've done Vulkan programming in C, and so they're just coming over to Java for God knows what reason. I don't know why someone who's already written Vulkan stuff in C would suddenly turn around and go, you know what, let's try to write that in Java. Right? Like, I'm the only crazy ass who's coming from it from the opposite direction, right? So I beg the author to understand who their audience is for this. Please just describe what audience they think they have for this, because there's a lot of stuff in here that's just kind of either looks like it was, you know, taken from a C reference guide and converted directly to Java without any real thought put into it, or just kind of like written so fast and thrown together so quickly that they didn't really put any thought into, like, is anybody going to be able to read this when I'm done with it, you know? It's so relatable. Even trying to pick up Mono Game got me in the mood to try GameDev, but God, the tutorials are kind of mid. I wish there was better doc. Exactly, right? And that's the thing that gets me about this too, is that this is, I can understand, like, when people come in and they say, why Java? I can understand why they're saying, why Java? But I'm understanding even more now, because the documentation's really crap when it comes to the GameDev stuff. Right? Like, it's pretty bad. And I wonder why, like, I see so many content creators out there in the programming space, right, in the game dev space, and I wonder why none of them have taken up the challenge of making this stuff better, whether they like Java or not, whether they like Python or not, you know. It's strange to me that no one has taken up the mantle of, like, you know, understanding this stuff well enough to be able to write about it and be able to provide better examples and better documentation and all that stuff. Because these aren't libraries that are not well cared for. I mean, WJGL is well cared for. Mono Game is well cared for. Like, these are libraries that, you know, have communities. But God only knows how they've learned how anything works. You know, I mean, geez Louise. It's like, I keep looking back at, like, the OpenGL stuff that I did in this engine, and how straightforward it was. You know, yeah, I had some bugs, but I was able to get them fixed pretty quickly. And then I look at this, at the way that Vulkan is implemented, and it's just like, what the hell are we doing here? what what is going on with this? It's just insanity. Um, just absolute insanity. Um, just to do something simple, it strikes me as a library that tried to be everything for everyone, and it does nothing really well, but it does everything a little bit. Like, it does a little bit of everything, but doesn't really do anything well, and that's kind of what's coming off of here, right? It's like it's a jack of all trades and a master of none, is what it feels like. And I really hope, I really wish at some point they would have a separate Vulkan driver or library or something that was specifically tuned towards games. Much like OpenGL had a lot of GameDev in mind when it was doing its thing. Just because there's so much here that it feels like there's so much boilerplate here that it feels like it could go away in an instant if they had an actual direction. If the direction was we're making a game, I bet 90% of this code would just go away, and it would actually be manageable, and still not you'd still have the ability to go and tweak things to your liking. But if all you really wanted was something that works right now, right today, you could probably take all the defaults, It almost feels like an old boys club. You go through the 2-year learning period and they let you in, and you're not allowed to make docs for noobs. Well, some of that, and I think a lot of it is, and I'm guilty of this too. Devs hate spending time on documentation. I'm just as guilty of that. I know I have to document things, and I always make it the last thing that I do. And it's good enough, but not necessarily stellar. So I feel like that's kind of the same thing here too. So much boilerplate. Java's object-oriented? No, it's boilerplate-oriented. You'll spend your career writing the same boilerplate. Well, yeah. I don't necessarily think... See, I don't think this is a function of Java. I think this is very much a function of the Vulkan libraries under the covers, because at the end of the day, all Java is doing right now is through a native interface calling the C DLLs under the covers, right? The C libraries under the covers that Vulkan builds, and so a lot of these calls are just one-to-one calls. So some of that is, a lot of that is the underlying C library that it's wrapping, and some of it is, LWJGL just not providing a better abstraction. And I don't know if that's because they kind of scrambled to have Vulkan support, or what have you, or if it's just like, well, we could wrap these things, but then we'll take a whole bunch of agency away from you, where you won't be able to do the kind of things you want to do under the covers. So I don't know if it's a little bit of both or not. You would think a library that's called Lightweight Java Game Library would provide a better abstraction for Vulkan, given that the whole purpose is to develop games. That's the whole purpose of the library. But I don't know if I don't know if they're trying to. I don't know if this was a stepping point to get to that point, or if it was just more of a let's just get something out there, and then, you know, someone will eventually come along and make it better kind of thing. You think it would be just be easier to go hop into doing it with C++ instead of relying on the API? No, I don't think so. Because like I said, all the calls appear to be one-to-one calls to the C API, right? Under the covers. And a lot of this example code that I'm seeing here looks like it was copied from example code for how to do it in C, right? So I don't think it would actually be any easier. I think the library itself is trying to be as bare bones as possible, and in the process of doing that, it made itself untenable and basically difficult to work with. And I think you'd still want some sort of abstraction there on top of it to just get some of this nonsense out of the way. Because there's so much you have to set up for something as simple as making a cube spin, you know. I mean, making a cube spin in OpenGL was like 2 chapters. Making a cube spin in Vulkan was 6 chapters, actually 7 chapters, of just setting up all of this stuff, all the memory and all the shaders and all this stuff. And it's just like, I'm just trying to make a cube spin, for crying out loud. Like, why is this rocket science right now? And I don't think that's, I think you'd have the same problem in C. You'd have the same problem in C++. You'd have the same problem, you know, if Python had a wrapper around it, around Vulkan, probably have the same problem there. Like, it's just, it's desperately calling for some sort of reasonable abstraction that it doesn't have right now. I think is what's coming. I think that's what the real issue is that it's just like, it's so bare metal. It doesn't have a design. It fundamentally is designed not poorly. Poorly is not the word I'm looking for. It's fundamentally designed without thought to its use cases. Right? They just literally just said, okay, everything's going to be a structure and everything's going to be a function call. And that's it. And they didn't put any thought into who was actually going to use this or what the actual big use cases of this were going to be. Because if they had, they would have figured out probably a better way of handling a lot of that stuff. And I think that's the real problem, you know? Give me imposter syndrome. This reasoning. No, it's not. I mean, first of all, always take my frustrations with a hefty dose of salt, right? Because fundamentally, I'm talking about something that I have no idea about, right? Which is the inner workings of a driver. I've never written a hardware driver. I don't know what challenges they have as far as like getting it to work with NVIDIA cards and getting it to work with AMD cards, and then working with NVIDIA engineers and working with, you know, ATI engineers and all that stuff. I'm sure there's probably a whole working group and everything else that's going into it. Drivers are constantly being updated to support it and all that stuff. I don't know the inner workings of it, so I don't know what their decision making was. I'm more complaining because I have a specific use case that is, and I'm seeing a lot of code here that is lower level than it ought to be for my specific use case. You know, there's probably someone else who looks at this and goes, you know, hey, I need to do some scientific modeling. And so I have a completely different set of things I need to do. And so I need this low level boilerplate stuff that you don't need for your purposes. You know? And so when you're like in a Kronos group or something like that, where you have to this working group and stuff, you know, they have a different, very, very different look, very, very different view of what's going on there. I'm just bitching and moaning from the perspective of someone who doesn't necessarily care about the underlying hardware and what the underlying hardware is doing. Right? Like, I do and I don't. Right? Like, I care about performance and I care about supporting as many things as I can. But I also want to make products. You know what I mean? Like, hardware engineers want the hardware to perform as well as it possibly can. And I just want it to perform well enough to do what I want to do. And I don't necessarily care exactly what it's doing under the covers. You know, like I said, you do and you don't, because performance requires that you know at least a little bit. And I feel like for what's going on here, I'm having to basically, it feels like I'm low level communicating with hardware. When really I want to communicate from a higher level. And that's my real issue right now, is that I want to learn, but I also don't. I want to focus my learning on the software side of things, and not necessarily have to understand how the hardware is working at a fundamental level. I know that doesn't sound right, and I'm not really explaining it well, but essentially I feel like in my head, the faster I can get something to the less steps it takes me to get something basic to work, the more I can iterate on it, the more I can understand how it's working. I can't get a level of understanding of how this is working because I can't get to the step needed to iterate on it. Right? It's taking me months to get to a point where I can get stuff on the screen and I can see how it's working and I can see how it's functioning. And oh, that's broken. Let me fix that. And I fix that. And doing the iterative stuff. Saying, okay, I've got a little thing here. Let's iterate on that. Let's iterate on that. Let's iterate on that. As you iterate over something, you start to learn it better. At least I do. I feel like my biggest frustration right now is I can't get to that point where I can iterate over something. Because I'm still in over my head, treading water, doing stuff that I don't really understand how it's affecting the larger product, because I can't even get the larger product to work yet because I have to do all this foundational work that I feel like every engine probably has to do the same thing. So if every game engine has to do the same thing, why isn't it abstracted away? Like, if every game engine goes through the same process, why do I have to go through the same process again? Right? It's like, shouldn't that be a clue that, you know, there should be an abstraction there that just takes care of a lot of this stuff so you can get to the point where you can start to see things happening and start to iterate, you know? So that's my issue, is that I feel like I've spent more time in the dark trying to figure out this thing because I don't have, you know, I'm a visual person and I don't have anything to look at. I'm just looking at a whole bunch of text and trying to envision in my mind what's going on. But what's going on in my mind and what's going to happen on the screen are going to be two very different things. And that's kind of where I'm stuck right now. What's my vision for the game? Is it a learning project or something you'd like to give to the world one day? I would like to give it to the world one day. Whether it's an actual game or just an engine, I don't know. But I have an idea for a very casual, space-oriented game that I want to do. That I would never charge any money for, because it's not going to be a good game. It's going to be my first game, so your first game is never going to be a good game. But I also want to learn to do it, right? Because that's the problem. The problem is I could very easily swap over to Godot Engine or Unreal 5 or Unity or one of those and just start making a game right now. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Except that's not really necessarily my passion. I mean, yes, I'd like to make a game eventually, but really I just want to know how it all works. I want to be able to look at something and go, hey, I have an engine now. I kind of understand how things work under the covers of an engine, and you know, then I can start to think about, well, let's do some game-like things in it, you know, and just build modules on top of it, and build tools for it. You know, I'm gonna need tooling. It's gonna be an engine, right? So I need tooling. I need to be able to load scenes up from disk and rapidly get to things and be able to test things quickly and stuff like that, you know? I'm gonna the whole testing stuff, like, you know, it would be great if I could have automated testing that could go through like a little tiny bit of AI, not the AI that we're thinking of today, but like traditional AI that just can go through and play the game a little bit and see if there's bugs, you know, how do you test an engine and all that stuff. Like, these are the things that I am more interested in. Because I think ultimately at the end of the day, what goes into a game, there's a lot more that goes into a game that I don't have any passion for. So, art, music, sound effects, writing. I mean, I kind of enjoy writing, but it's not a big thing for me, right? All those things have to go into a game in order for it to be a good game, quote unquote, right? And I don't really have a passion for any of that stuff. It's the coding that I like, and that's why, you know, when people say, well, why don't you just do it in Godot and stuff like that, it's because honestly, yes, you're going to do some coding in Godot, but you're not going to. Most of it's already done for you. I shouldn't say that, but it's, the engine's already there, so there's still going to be, there's a lot more focus on the things that I don't really care so much about, and less on the things that I do care about, so. Music jam streams. Yeah. Yeah, music is going pretty good here. we're getting a little bit of dance party stuff. That's why I like mono games so much. For people who want to code their own game and not rely on point and click, setting up objects and such doesn't feel like programming unless I'm in the weeds. Yeah. I mean, that pretty much captures the way I feel. Is like, I'm not an artist, I'm not a musician, I'm not a writer. I'm a coder. And I feel like I just want to code, Which which I also realize is frustrating to people, because a lot of people want, they want to see a game being made. And I'm spending all my time, like, down in the weeds, typing in stuff that half of which I don't even understand. And waxing philosophical about how I would do things differently, even though I don't know even what's going on under the covers half the time. And so I get that. Yeah, but this is where my passion lies, is in writing this code. Not necessarily in, I like to create things. I create things all the time. But I want to do it, I feel like by writing the code myself, I feel like I'm doing it on my terms, right? The only thing that's limiting me is me, which is a big limiting factor. But it like if one day I feel like, you know what, let's just do a 2D thing, I could go do a 2D thing, or if I, if I want to add building mechanics into the game, where you've got like in No Man's Sky, where you can do like build a base out of all kinds of different wall panels and floor panels and all that stuff. Like, I can just do that, right? I don't have to, like, if you start a game project with an already existing engine, you're not locked into a particular genre, but at some point you kind of are. Right? Because you'll start going down the path of like, let's get all this working, let's get all that working, and then you get to the end and you're like, well, I kind of don't feel like doing this anymore, I want to do this other thing. It's like, you can do it, but how far down the path have you gone? Do you have to back all the way back up again to do it, or what? So I don't think you'll hit pirate software levels. That's good. Prod went down twice. You relax. I hear that. I took the last 2 days off, so I needed some time to recharge. It's, we're out of crunch mode, which is nice. But as I told my colleagues on Wednesday, like, this last crunch, even though it wasn't that bad, it certainly wasn't the worst crunch mode I've had. It just took everything out of me. Like, I was just so done with everything. I was getting like genuinely like uh, cranky. Um, and that's not what I want to be. So I'm like, I just need to take a few days and just kind of like veg out a little bit and just try to recover and stuff. And I'm starting to recover a bit more as it goes on. Now that we're in like the low period after the, production freeze, now it's back to like, let's do refactoring, let's do the things that we feel like, let's solve some of the technical debt that we have. And it's always nice. Too many companies don't appreciate this, but it's always nice to get back to a point where your devs are doing technical debt mitigation, because it gives you a break from the stress of trying to gather requirements and everything else. And it allows you to go back and just kind of clean up the place a little bit, make things better, look at performance, do kind of the stuff that's a little bit more free flowing and a little bit more interesting in spots, And it kind of helps you like recharge a little bit, because it feels like you're doing something you want to do, instead of always doing something that somebody else wants you to do, So yeah, I'll reserve my comments about Pirate Software. Let's just say that I hope that I am more balanced and more senior in my outlook. I do lash out in frustration at things, but I by no means am a reliable source of anything. Right? Like I've seen some shit, certainly, but I am not. I'm an experienced developer, but I'm not a good developer. I'm mediocre at best, but I can at least get a few things done here and there. Make the jump from junior to senior. Well, that's good. That's good. That's good to know. Yeah, I mean, it's the jump from junior to senior is really, it's the best way to make a jump from junior to senior is to have a mentor along the way. Is the way I've always said it. Right? Because the only real difference between we're all juniors. Like, to be honest with you, I may be a senior dev when it comes to like Spring Framework and web development and all that stuff. But what I'm doing here, I am very much a junior dev at this point, right? Because I don't know what I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of experience. I have experience on other things that I'm trying to apply to it, but that's very different. It's a very different space. So it's a very fluid thing going from junior to senior. You'll be senior at some things, junior in other things. This, technology is constantly changing. You think you're a senior for 10 years, and then something new comes out and now you're a junior again. Right? Because you're having to learn all this stuff, like the AI, MCPs and all that stuff now. Like, I'm very much a junior in all that stuff, trying to learn how all that works and everything. The ML stuff and all that. And then obviously with this stuff, very much a junior. The real difference is a sense for where your time is best spent, right? Because what I've seen and what I also experienced myself was, as a junior dev, you have this predilection to run to make everything into a project. In other words, to run down blind alleys. And I'll give you an example. When I was first learning C, way back in high school, teaching myself C, one of the first things that kind of caught my attention as far as like stuff that I wanted to try was file compression. I started to go down the rabbit hole of file compression and figuring out, like, how does file compression work? How does pkzip work? How does WinRAR work? And all this stuff. And I was learning about it. And at the same time, I was also like learning a little bit of game dev stuff, like low level, like DOS gaming stuff, how to do software rendering and all that. And one of the, I'm looking at the compression stuff, and I had learned about pseudo random number generators and how pseudo random number generators work. Like, there's a formula that a pseudo random number generator uses to generate the random numbers in the system. And there's a mathematical formula that it follows, and you plug your seed number into there, and then you get the same whatever. If you put the same seed number in there, you get the same number, random numbers come out the other end in the same sequence. And so I became utterly convinced, because I was reading about compression and how compression uses like dictionaries to compress things down and sliding windows and all this stuff. And I became absolutely convinced that I could reverse engineer the formula that pseudo-random number generators use so that I could so that based on a file, a multi-gigabyte file, I could read all the file in and find a seed for the random number generator that would generate that same sequence of bytes for the entire file, and basically turn this multi-gigabyte file into just a few bytes, where I could just say, here's the seed and here's a header to say that this is by this processed by this program. And had I had a mentor at the time, a mentor would have said something like, that's a good thought, but why don't you look at things that already exist? Why don't you look at the sliding windows? Why don't you look at the dictionary compression that things already do? Why don't you see if there's something in there that could be improved upon, instead of going off on your own crusade here for glory and honor? And had I had that, I might have gone down a very different path and looked at a lot of that stuff. Instead, as it was, I spent weeks racking my brain over this formula, trying to make this thing work, and just hit a brick wall. And then realized very quickly, just because something's never been done that way doesn't mean it can be done that way. There might be a very good reason why something isn't done that way, and you might just not know it at this point. And so that's the real difference between a senior and a junior developer, right? Is that mentality of, just because something has never been done before doesn't mean that people have never looked at it. It just means that maybe you're missing some pieces of the puzzle, and maybe you need to look at what people have already done and then see if there's a more viable path. Where you spend your time is more important than what is the most important thing, right? You learn to, not everything has to be homegrown and home written. Sometimes it's good to bring in a library to do something for you. There's also a point where bringing in too many libraries is a bad thing, as a lot of JavaScript developers are finding out, especially recently. Um, Sometimes you don't need 100 libraries that all do one thing. Sometimes you can just do that yourself. And so there's a balance to be found there. But you also don't need to reinvent the wheel either. Like, figure out where your talent is best suited in the process, basically. So, yeah. Isn't it just crazy how you can go down a rabbit hole of something interesting just for it to be a zero-sum result? Done that more than once. Yep. No, everybody does that. That's my point, right? Everybody's been a junior developer at some point, and everybody does that. That's junior developers do that all the time. It only becomes a problem when a senior developer does it. Because when senior developers start doing it, then you've got code that is artisanally grown and will come back to haunt you in the decades to come. If it doesn't haunt you, the one who wrote it, it's going to haunt somebody else who comes into the job after you and has to fix all the stuff that you did instead of just using a library to do it. NPM is a huge mistake. I swear, I saw we were using pad left at work, and I was like, Jesus Christ, guys, it's simple string stuff. Yeah. Saying it because of the recent attack that occurred, libraries had to manually check across our stuff, and it took ages. Yes. Now, I've been keeping an eye on the NPM stuff, too, because we don't... we have a couple JavaScript libraries that we use, like jQuery, and we have like a date picker library, and like a drag and drop library as well, just to do easy drag and drop stuff. So we don't use too many. We are also using, we're starting to use, what is the name of it? HTMX. We're starting to use that a little bit. But we really don't, we try not to use too much JavaScript on a page. We don't have, we don't do a single page app. And I'm actually very much against single page apps. Very, very much against them. I would rather have everything rendered on the server where you can control the performance of it. Have just as much pure HTML come back to the client as possible, because the browser can really do pure HTML really well. And then the JavaScript is just there for as simple of things as we can do. If we need to do a little, a background save here or there, or just a partial page render or whatever, for like an Ajax call, then great. But yeah, I'm not a fan of React. I'm not a fan of Angular. I feel like pushing all that stuff onto a browser that's running on a system that you don't know if it's a potato or not is just a bad idea, because you're just going to always have problems with people saying it doesn't perform well. Meantime, they've got 25 browser extensions running and God knows what else happening. They've got, virus scanners constantly churning out, going over their HTML pages and everything. And I'm old school in that regard. But I was looking at the NPM stuff, because right now we manually bring in the JavaScript libraries that we use, and I was like, guys, it'd be really great if I could just use NPM. We'll pin the versions that we need. Like I wouldn't do like version ranges. I always pin the versions to exactly what version I want and nothing more. And then that way I can have like the Pendabot and GitHub like let me know when stuff is, you know, is out of whack and all that. But yeah, it's with all the recent stuff with NPM, it's been an uphill battle. It's been an uphill battle. You love React because it makes rendering a page so much more convenient. Yeah, yeah. No, and there are other groups in our company that use React. And I'm not saying it's not nice. I'm just saying I prefer old school. In that particular case, I prefer old school. Yeah. We have a button that just doesn't work when clicked. 0 log errors, 0 console errors. Also absolutely nothing. Why is it broke? Only programming, Jesus knows. Yeah. Exactly. You know, it's just it is what it is. You know, the React components and stuff certainly look nice. They're certainly slick looking. But I really don't like having my model view controller in the browser. I really prefer having that on the server and just have the server serve up HTML, as pure HTML as it can do. HTMX has been looking really nice in that, you know, it does the AJAX calls in the background for you, and you can actually trigger events on the client, you know, like JavaScript events on the client from a server method and all that stuff. So that is certainly a mix between the two. You know, you get a little bit of the benefits of having a React style model with still having a traditional server client server model. But yeah, it's just there's. I mean, we were integrating with one of the groups. They had something that we needed to use, and my colleague was, you know, did all the code on our side to call their code and everything else, and then he started testing it, and he started getting this. He started looking at what was coming back, and he was getting this error. He's like, what is this? I've never seen this error before. And he's looking and he's like, this cookie is like, it was trying to send us a cookie that was too large. We're like, why the hell why is this cookie coming back from the browser to the browser, like in the header? Why is this so large? And he you know, takes that up with the other group, and they're like, oh yeah, you know, the framework we're using just decided to put an entire image in a cookie, an entire PNG image into a cookie by accident. It's like, how do you do that by accident? That doesn't sound possible. Oh, the framework did. It's like, well, okay, okay, sure. Yeah, it was putting an entire image in the cookie, and of course the cookie was too large, and so it was getting rejected, and we were just getting these crazy errors and stuff. It's like, geez Louise, guys. Like, geez Louise, what are we doing? Oh. So yeah, they had to go fix that. They had to go trace that down and fix that. Um, but it's like little stuff like that. Like, I swear, the thing that takes me the most time when I'm developing something is the freaking HTML and CSS. The CSS especially. I am so horribly bad at CSS. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about CSS that breaks my brain, but it breaks my brain. And so we use Bootstrap, the old Twitter Bootstrap stuff. And I start looking at, and I was like, okay, I could kind of maneuver and manage Bootstrap a little bit because it doesn't clutter your HTML up too much. But it does have its own set of just pain points. And so I thought, I kept hearing about Tailwind and how great Tailwind is. And so I started playing around with Tailwind. I'm like, this is god awful. I'm like, so let me get this straight. Instead of me putting, one or two classes on an HTML tag, you want me to put 25 of them? And oh, by the way, you need to repeat that 25 like 60 times on the page because you can't just have like a widget that just brings it in. I'm like, you're killing me here. You are literally killing me. I'm like, I am terrible at CSS, and now you're telling me I need to literally, there are plugins for the IDE, and there's plugins, I think there was a Maven plugin too, to manage and generate all of the Tailwind tags that you need for a particular thing. I'm like, excuse me, gentlemen, how is this better? This is not better. This is literally hurting my brain. Oh. CSS is spooky magic, and I swear to you that as good as it is, someone actually who made a deal with the devil. Yeah, no, I feel that. I do feel that. Tailwind is a war crime. Yeah. That's how I feel on it. It's just like, I mean, don't get me wrong, Tailwind looks really nice. It actually looks better, I think, in a lot of places than Bootstrap does. But it's a freaking mess to deal with. Like, holy hell, man. Like, you're telling me I need an entire language server just to generate the damn Tailwind for me? Like, no thanks. How about a no thanks on that one? Because as it is, and we've had to deal with this a couple times, Bootstrap itself, I swear to you, the people who maintain Bootstrap do not understand. No, I take that back. They understand how versioning works, but they do not understand how the life cycle of software works, right? Because I try to keep our software and our libraries up to date as much as I can, because there's security patches and all kinds of other things, right? Bootstrap, we've gone from Bootstrap 3 to Bootstrap 4 to Bootstrap 5, and every single time it has been a god-awful nightmare, because they will change things for no goddamn reason. I'll give a good example. Bootstrap 4. You have margin start. I'm sorry, no. Margin left, margin right. So everything's got, MR, ML, padding left, padding right, blah, blah, blah. Left and right. Which, when you look at a screen, left and right makes a whole lot of sense. Bootstrap 5, they said, what if we changed everything to margin start and margin end? Padding start and padding end. So, literally, it does the exact same thing that it used to do, except they changed the wording. Right? So now, all of your pages are broken for no good reason, because now you've got to go in and change every place that says margin left and margin right with margin start and margin end. Now, where is start and where is end? It's left and right. Is margin start ever going to be right and margin end left? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it never is. So they make these changes that literally cause more work for people for no good reason. And it just drives me up a wall. Because we have hundreds of HTML pages in our app. And so whenever we have to update this, and we often do because it's got security patches and stuff, ironically enough, we have to go, the four of us have to go through hundreds of HTML pages and change all these things as we're going along and watch it, see where it's broken and where it isn't broken. We have an old version of it, of the app running, and then the new version, then we have to switch back and forth between the two and see, okay, is this positioned correctly? Is that positioned correctly now? Blah, 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 all that stuff. It is, every single time, it's a Herculean effort for very little to any benefit. Yeah, it is. It's over engineering at its worst. It's kind of like the change that was made to the yeah, okay. Okay, Vernon. Well, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's kind of I feel like people make changes like that just because it reminds everybody of their importance. It makes them feel more important. I'm sorry, how is it going? Thanks, Verona. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's just craziness. All right, we gotta get at least a little bit more going here. Let me. So I got a texture sampler, all that stuff. Okay, that's fine. I need to take a very short bio break, my friends. I'll be right back. Hang tight. Enjoy the music, hopefully. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that, friends. Old man bladder and all that stuff. Welcome on in, Real Mellow Monkey and Tekken War. Apologies, I know you sent that message about 5 minutes ago. Apologies, I was away. Anyway, yeah, I need to figure out what I'm doing here with these descriptor sets and stuff. Wonder what I can do. So I did we got the texture. See, they've got all kinds of stuff going in here, and I don't know, what is the push constant buffer used for? Is that passed? That's got to be passed in somewhere here, I imagine. You know what? Let me look at their actual code so I can see it easier. Oh no, they're just holding on to it. What's it used in? It's freed up. Okay. Mono matrix. Slice. Huh. Okay, interesting. But what? Wait a minute, where is this used at? 307. Oh, set push constants. Set push constants. Okay. Where's this called from? Oh, from render. Okay. See, this is the problem. I don't have a render method, but I do have a method that's similar to this, right? Do I have a render method? I don't think. No, I have a record command buffer. I have a submit. I don't know. Some of this stuff is going to have to come out of here and go into the render. Do they have a record command buffer? See, their render class is... They're doing a lot of stuff in this class. And I don't know that all this should be in here. Like my code smell vision is kicking in, where I feel like this class is doing more than it should be doing. Though I don't know for sure. So this is scene render equals new scene render. So in render class here, because they've got a render class. Which the render class makes more sense, because the render class is kind of their entry point into the engine entry point, basically. Kind of, sort of. So it makes sense that this would be calling a lot of stuff. Because it's got to kick off the initialization of a lot of things, but... Man. Like, they've got to resize in here, too. Scene render. Okay, so it calls scene render resize. Alright. I'm not... Yeah. I got the wait for fence here. So their render class is my forward render. Or what they used to call forward render. More or less. Because you got the recording and stuff in here. Oh, I think I'm not gonna be able to get away from this. I'm gonna have to refactor. I'm gonna have to switch it over to how they have things, because it's the only way I'm gonna be able to make heads or tails of this going forward. I absolutely do not like this class. And I downright refuse to make this class. So, because they passed this class around, like, this has got all kinds of crazy nonsense in it. They're using it kind of like a Pojo, but it's also not a Pojo. And they're just passing this Pojo around instead of passing around the things that actually matter. And that's driving me up a wall right now, because this is just bad design through and through. Because what you're doing is you're passing this, yes, you're passing a reference around, so it's not hurting the performance per se. It's hurting the readability of your code, because now you're just assuming all this stuff exists and it's been set up and everything else, and it's just like all you really need, like, they're passing this in and then all they're doing is reading like device from it. It's like, or you could just pass device, you know. It's like passing this whole damn thing in is just it's just bad overall way to do things. It's lazy is what it is, and I'm seeing a lot of laziness in the way this is coded, and it's bothering me quite a bit. And again, they're just like, they have a hard-on for arrays. I don't know why. They just do. This feels like the use of arrays like this feels like they copied it from C and just converted it to Java without really putting much thought into what they were doing. Because there's just no reason to do this. Like, we have so much better classes, so much better abstractions to use. Because when you start doing this, which, again, you're combining all these things. It just burns my ass. Like, we have better constructs that are using than that, you know? Yeah, And it's all, and they've got it stuffed all in the constructor, right? Which is, I don't know. I feel like they've never seen a init method before in their lives. Oh no, I'm sorry. They do have an init method too. So they made it even worse. like yes, we have a constructor, but then you also have to call init again. You know, the constructor does half of it and the init does the other half of it. It's so silly. So super silly. Anyway. Let's see. I don't know what else I can do here. I think I've reached the point where I have to bite the bullet and refactor. That's what's going to have to happen. Refactor it so that I can use this book still. So they changed everything under the covers. I mean, that means I gotta go all the way back to... I mean, I basically gotta go back to chapter 5 then, right? We're on chapter 8. We're like right at the last bit of chapter 8 that we would need to do to get this on screen. And now I gotta go all this crap. I gotta go all the way back to chapter 5. And just change everything over. I don't know. There's gotta be a way that I can just kind of remodel my stuff here. It's going to take a little bit. So this is the difference. This is a comparison between chapter 5 and chapter 8 of their book, the source code of their book. So what I'm going to have to do, and I've already renamed a bunch of stuff on my own because I felt like it wasn't named properly in the first place, so I can't do just like a one-to-one replacement either. I have to actually figure out what's going on. Main implements iGame logic. Yeah, I hate how they've done this. Yeah, there's just things I downright refuse to do because it doesn't make any sense. So this is gonna be a thing. Engine config again. Like I don't. Like at some point, yes, I want to read from a properties file, but it's not necessary right now. I hate that they've done this up front. Like you don't need this. Just make the properties here and then you can do it later. It's just annoying right now. It's extra nonsense that is muddying the learning of what you're trying to do. Render init. So engine init data. interfaces. No, we're not doing an interface. We're not going to over-engineer this right now. Init data. So they've got a record called init data. Models and materials. Models and materials, huh? Okay. What else are they doing in engine config here? Share recompilation, debug shaders, field of view. Okay. Well, that's, I mean, this is straightforward enough. I just don't need to, I don't need to load it from a properties file just yet. Scene render. I don't know why they have a scene render and a render, but I guess that's, I mean, they had a render and a forward render before, so I guess it's the same idea, but it's also not, because they've got different stuff in here. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Where's render at? Here it is. Get semaphore. Image. Because they're doing it a different way here than they were doing in the version of the book that I was using. What do I start at? Like, the hardest part is figuring out where to start. I guess the best place I can start is by walking through their main method and then from there tracing where I need to move stuff around. I guess that's the only thing I can do. I'm going to do it from chapter 8 because that's just where we're at. So let's look at their book here. So this is their code. Where's entry point at? So we've got, so first of all, they have the engine config thing. What is engine CTX? No idea. It's just a record. It's a record with the window and the scene in it. Why is this necessary? I don't know. What's this referred by? 14 usages. Public render. Engine context. I guess that's what's in engine. Engine contexts. Game logic render. It's just to hold the window in the scene. Come on, guys. What the fuck are you doing? You've got the window here. Like, just put the window in the engine. Why do you need another frickin' class to hold two frickin' things? Jesus Christ. They're passing it to render, and they're passing it to init on the game logic. When all you, just pass the goddamn, just pass the window of the scene. You've got them. Just pass those. You don't need to muddy the goddamn water with. Oh. The person that coded this just did it in such a way that is just pissing me off to no end. Oh man, it just absolutely ticking me off for no good reason. All right, fine. Let's take a deep breath. Let's go back to, so here's their main. All right, it goes in there, it emits. They are loading a model up. They're loading materials up. And then they have an update loop. Okay. So this, to me, is not main because I'm gonna keep the OpenGL stuff that I have because I still want to do stuff in that too. Just for my own testing, my own learning. So okay, here's what we're doing. We're gonna jump back. We're gonna say, let's look at our main. I'm gonna close everything up here. Just get a fresh slate. And we're gonna say, where's my... So my main is down here. Oh, come on. I hate when... Whatever. I hate how IntelliJ is like, oh, you got like subclasses, so you can't open the main class because you got subclasses. Just, you know. Anyway, so I call Vulkan engine, right? And I just process command line arguments here, so no biggie. So I call Vulkan engine. Okay. So my Vulkan engine, which has some bugs in it now because of things that have changed. My Vulkan engine is equivalent to their engine class. Kind of. Actually, their main class? Well, they start up a new engine. Yeah, they have an init in here that this has no business being in this class. Nor does the update have any business being in this class. It's, yeah. All this stuff is going to go under engine, which is where I have it, because that's actually where it makes the most sense to be. Not shoved in here. Alright, so they have a init. So first of all, let's look at engine. Look at their engine. Okay. So their engine takes a window title and a game logic, app logic. What the frick is... Oh. An instance of main. Sure. Whatever. Why not? Why not have recursion in there too? I mean, we might as well throw everything at the wall. Um, have a recursive callback. So, and they're doing that. This is what pisses me off, right? Because they passed an instance of main in here, which technically speaking, you're supposed to create an instance of main from the static to create or at least you're supposed to create an instance of something, because main is static. Fine. But what pisses me off more is they pass that instance into here, into game logic, just to call init on something they created in here. And it's like, why didn't you just put the init method into here and just call it here? Like, why are you calling back to the thing that? Why did you pass a thing in to call back to that thing? It's doesn't make a lick of sense. It's like, keep the freaking logic together where it's supposed to be. Like, there's no, like I said, there's no reason for this to be in here, right? You could just have, it's okay. You can just have a main method and just have it just kick off the engine and tell the engine to run, and boom, you're done. Like, you don't have to. They got update in here too. That's, again, it's just, it's like what they're trying to do is they're trying to make it so that in theory all they have to do is change what init does if they want to change what model is loading, and what update does if they want to change what the model is doing. And that's why they have input in here as well, because they could just add keyboard input and all that stuff without changing the engine. In practice, you're going to end up changing the engine, probably. So, like, just put this where it freaking belongs. Anyway, so they start up a brand new Vulkan engine. Okay. I've got a brand new Vulkan engine here. I've got the init in here. And I am creating a Vulkan window, Vulkan scene, Vulkan renderer, right? They're creating a window, a render, a window, a scene, and a render, right? Window, scene, renderer. Okay. See, the tricky part is I'm calling them Vulkan window, Vulkan scene and stuff because I don't want it to clash with the OpenGL stuff, even though the OpenGL stuff is in another package, another folder. If you start calling everything the same thing, you have to be really careful when you do the imports that you're importing the correct package. Otherwise, you'll end up calling the wrong window for the wrong thing, and then you won't notice that you've called the wrong thing. So that's why I put, Vulkan window, Vulkan scene, Vulkan renderer there. Even though it's kind of unnecessary in many ways, that it's very necessary when you're having multiple things. So let's see what we got. So I'm doing a 600 by 600 window. So what are they doing? Please off the background music. Is it too loud? It's quite disturbing. Is it too loud? Is that all that's, is that the problem? Like I could turn it down. I didn't think it was that loud. I mean, I can fire up. I mean, I'm doing OC Remix radio right now, but I can fire up like X4 soundtrack or something. Let's see. What do I have here? Game Logic and Knit. So they're doing render. So they've got their engine. They're seeing, yeah. Is there a window? Height and width. Oh, they're just making the width and the height whatever the screen window and height is. Which is fine, but not really what I want to do right now. Okay. So they have that. So then I have, didn't I make a constants or something, like a game constants? I think, no, maybe I just put them in. I might have just put them directly in line here. So how about we do that at least? I'll put a KDE user. Yep. Yep. I do like KDE. I've never been much of a fan of GNOME. So I've always kind of gone with the KDE stuff. And I looked briefly at like Hyperland and stuff, and I don't know. I'm not. I guess I should tile my windows more often. Especially since, you know, I swap back and forth Alt Tab all the time. I'm trying to like look at things. I don't know. I for some reason, I don't know why I've never like tiled side by side the windows like I should, because it would be much easier to see what you're doing. And it's, I don't know, for some reason it plays with my vision. I don't I feel like I can't read anything. I'm like horizontal scrolling constantly. I don't know. It's just a weird thing for me. Yeah. So let's do. I thought I had a thing. I guess I don't have a thing. Common. You prefer using the windows in full screen rather than side by side? Yeah. I don't know. It's just something about. And maybe it's because a lot of times I have like IDEs and stuff open where you've got icons on the side and icons on the side, and when everything gets squished together, it's like it doesn't feel quite right. Although, having said that, I also don't have a very large monitor either, so maybe that plays a role in it. I mean, it's a 1440p, but I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I do have the font very large, just because you guys wouldn't be able to see anything if I didn't. So maybe that plays into it a little bit too. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do. Where do I want to put this? Is the question. I guess engine, Vulkan engine, Vulkan window. Yeah, you know, I guess we'll just put it under here. And we'll do Java class, and we'll call it engine configuration. All right. So what do they have in their engine config thing? Well, that's not really it. They have some kind of configuration thing, right? Engine config, here it is. Okay, they put a lot of stuff in here. Okay. Updates per second. Okay. That kind of thing. So, what do I want to put in there? Yeah, so I can put logic updates per second and all that stuff in there. Frames per second. Movement increments. The model file, yeah, model file technically I should probably load from somewhere else, but I'm not going to worry about modeling that right now. Let's just grab this stuff out of here. And we'll put it in here. And we'll just go... yeah, getters. Huh? Oh, maybe I need to do a instructor here. No fields without getter. Huh? What did I mess up here? I guess because these are final, it's like, why do you need getters? Which is a fair point, but I think, yeah, I guess technically these won't be final because we'll be reading them from a file eventually, so let's do that. And I have a feeling it's going to not like the way I've done that divide. Yeah. Yeah, you know, yeah, okay. We're gonna have to fix those up a little bit. So, object frame time equals this. I guess I'll need to do that. Okay. And that's the related problem is. Oh, okay. That's fine. Oh, all right. Yeah, because these will be Actually, that was fine the way I had it. Yeah, that's alright. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine the way I had it. That's alright. Let's just do... There we go. Let's get some getters here. All these. I definitely don't want those to be... Oh, yeah, I see what's throwing it off. Okay. We probably should just have this be a Pojo. Pretty much straight up. Because it's, I mean, that's basically what it's going to be. So, whoops, that is the wrong command there. Nope. There we go. There, that looks a little bit better. Okay. And then I'll eventually have like either an init on here or a put something in the constructor. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm gonna put these back the way they were. Okay. Oh God. Oh, this is bad. I just realized I still have them capitalized because they were static. Yeah, let's let's change that. Because I just noticed the getters were all named weirdly. I guess this just be frames per second. Beats per second there, and there we go. And now these should look better. Aha, yes, that is much better looking. Okay, cool. So that's part of it. We still have a few more, I think, to throw in there. But what we're going to do... So I have an init. So how do I call Vulkan engine here? I just call... Okay, yeah. Yep. Alright, so we'll do... What do I call it? Vulkan engine configuration. So engine configuration equals new. Bam. There we go. Well, thanks, Sethwick. I appreciate it. Okay, cool. So got that. Excellent. And what else we got? Okay, so I got the engine configuration coming through there. I need to change these to references to call it. So we'll go engine configuration, FPS, frame time, get logic frame time. There we go. That's all we were actually using out of there right now. Okay, so then what else did they do here? So they got a whole bunch of other stuff in there, but that's fine. Now that I have the class that I can add stuff in as we go. So render. And then they've got, and then they call their init, and then they call render init. So they have a render class, which takes the window and the scene. Okay, and this is where I think we... So no, I have a Vulkan renderer that takes a window and a scene. Okay. They have an init, but so this game logic init is over here. So they create engine contexts. See, okay, they pull the scene out of the engine context. And they create their models. They load, so they have a models array, and then they load their model up. And create an entity here. So where do I do that? So I have a create test model and stuff. So we have an init. And then I've got load model. So I do that at the beginning of the main loop. Beginning of the rendering loop. Like, it's not in the loop, but it's the beginning of that. Which, in fairness, is probably a bad spot for it. Like, the main loop should probably entirely composed of the rendering loop and then the cleanup once you've gotten out of the rendering loop. So it's fair enough that they do that there. The question is, how would I like to do this? I can call this from init. Although init feels like a bad spot for it, because you're going to be loading, you're loading the entity up from a file. I mean, there's kind of a, we're still early, so we're not like doing it in a generic way, right? We're just kind of saying, just load this model up. Whereas this really would probably be, you would probably load up some kind of file that would tell you what scene to load, sort of. Something to that effect. Yes. Eventually. But for now, this is good enough. So I think what I want to do is, I want to have it in an init method, but I might, this? Let's do should I make it public? Yeah, you know what? Let's do that. Do public void init model. All right, and then this will we have the load model and renderer load models. This is not being called, though I do want to load the model up of the ship here. Instead, we're calling create test model, which I think is kind of what they're doing because they're creating a cube on the fly. Yeah, they're loading up a cube and then creating an entity for it. Load materials. Huh, this is interesting. Okay, so load model. So this model loader, I think, is pretty much what I have down here. Or I say model loader and then load. Model file, texture directory, texture files. Yeah, who's calling this? OpenGL, okay. Okay. So I actually kind of want the same call that I have here. In fact, pretty much the same call. So I'm going to do this from the OpenGL engine 1. Right, because this is still... Yeah, I refactored this, right, so that it's only... It's not engine specific anymore. Though there are some bugs in here. Yeah, it's not engine specific. It's literally just loading the model, which is good. So let's go over here. I'm going to get rid of load model. And instead, I'm going to do, put it up in here, init model. And then the question is what to do with the model once I have it. So what do they do? So they have a list of models. They just return init data, models and materials, which is just, I think, a record, right? Yeah, of course it is. Where does that... So that just comes back to here. And it's passed on to render. Okay. Okay. So, and then they create an entity and then add it to the scene. Where did the scene go? Wait a second. Oh. They're passing the scene in. That's why. I'm like, how does this not get lost? And it's not, because they're passing it in by reference. Okay. So the init model really has to take a scene. Actually, it doesn't even need to do that because it's got the scene here. So we're just going to hold that thought. So we got the scene, and the renderer needs the window and the scene. No, the renderer that they're doing is what? Oh, I see. So when they pass the scene in to their render class, so there's the window. Tell me the scene's not even being used. Oh, here we go. Scene render. Here it is. Okay, so there. This is why I don't like passing things like that, because then you can't find where it's being used properly. Okay, so the scene render. So render is. So they're initializing the scene before they even call render, which makes sense. So then I should take... So then this has to be private then. And then in here I have to take in the Vulkan scene. Right. And this gives me back model. All right. And then God damn you. So models, add cube model. So it's a list of model data. What is model data? Meshes and stuff. Alright. Huh. Okay. Yeah, I got some work to do here. I'd like to see if I can do some of this. I mean, I think doing it on camera is good, but yeah. So we're gonna, you know what? Let's just pick this up tomorrow, because my brain is starting to shut down here. Just past midnight for me. Yeah, let's pick this up tomorrow. I'll try to get the stream started a little bit earlier than usual tomorrow. So we get a couple hours in, and then I will likely do a double stream. So we'll do like coding in the afternoon, and then take a little break, and then probably do some gaming at nighttime. Most likely, depending on how I feel. So yeah, let's just stop there for right now. I see what I got to do. Well, I have a path forward right now. Let's put it that way. And I hopefully it'll be a little bit fresher in my brain. I'd like to, before the stream starts, maybe I can get like a little bit of a head start on it. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, friends. I think that'll do it for me for tonight. So, thank you so much, everyone, for watching. If you happen to run across this on the YouTubes and you have a like and or subscribe that you can spare and maybe toss my way, that would be really great and awesome, and I appreciate it greatly. It helps out a lot. Otherwise, thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I hope everyone has an excellent morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on what it is for you. And I hope to see you back here again in the future for some more stuff, whatever happens to suit your fancy. Until then, see you, bye.
Oopsie.